guys, welcome back. I hope you've enjoyed the videos that I've done so far. They have all been baking related, which is not really what I'm best at, if we're going to be honest. Baking is a lot of science, and I don't really do well measuring. I like to just throw things in and change things up and taste and change and move and go as I see fit along the way. And baking is a little bit difficult to do that. So today we're going to switch it up. We're going to go with a savory meal. And what I'm doing today is a really good way to get rid of some of those vegetables that are kind of on their last leg, that have maybe started to wilt, maybe don't quite have the crunch that they had a week ago. This is a great way to get rid of those. And it's a very vegetarian-based dish. I have a lot of friends up here at the school who are vegetarian or trying to eat a meatless meal, you know, once or twice a week. With this meal, it's really easy to add in your meats and extra proteins if you want to, but it's a great meal by itself if you are a vegetarian. There are really there's not a whole lot of ingredients to this. The base of it that I use is quinoa. So quinoa, you can find lots of different kinds. This is just what they had on hand when I went to the store, because y'all will notice that, you know, all your grains and shelf stable stuff really went quickly here. But quinoa is a really versatile grain, and really you could use this with rice. You could use it with couscous. You could use it with pasta. Really, whatever base you wanted to use. It's, again, really versatile with whatever you've got. So the vegetables that I had on hand that I'm going to be using today had some bell peppers. I'm probably only going to use part of one of them. But again, something I would do if I needed to get rid of one of these immediately would be to roast it off in the oven and then stuff it with this filling that I'm going to make in just a minute. It looks real cute. I mean, you could just chop it up in there like I'm going to do anyway, but you know, whatever. It makes a good serving platter. Got a jalapeno, I've got some cilantro, I have a zucchini, I have an onion, and then I have a can of fire roasted tomatoes. All right, so that just adds, if you can kind of see where we're going here. Oh, and I have a can of chipotle peppers. So chipotles are just smoked jalapenos. Nothing, I don't want to say nothing special about them. They're pretty amazing. And they're a really good substitute if you are using jalapenos, you want some heat, but this gives it a good smoky flavor without being too overwhelming. And so I'm going to use just kind of what I had on hand. These all came out of my veggie drawer, and I bought them probably a week and a half ago. So I'm going to try and put them to use before they go bad. If you hear the background noise, I'm really sorry. I know there's a man outside my window. I'm really excited. Like, he's probably my favorite person that I have seen today. Except for my students when I ran lunch route earlier. I did get to see a couple of them. And so that was great for my heart. But this man outside, y'all, so we sit out here for duty after lunch. And some of the gutters are no longer useful because they've rusted out. So we get rained on every time it rains, or you're trying to walk to the main building or whatever, and this man is giving us new gutters, and I'm so excited. This is what it's like to be an adult, for any of you kids wondering. These are the things you have to look forward to. But it's great. It's a great day. Okay, so something to do before we get started. You're gonna need a seasoning mix of some kind. Now, I make a big batch of seasoning mix when I do this. This is, well, I had this full, but I make it in big batches because I use it on everything. I use it on my seared pork tenderloin. I'm going to use it on some shrimp here in a minute. I'm going to use it in my quinoa dish. So it's really, really handy to have around. And if you have a particular seasoning mix that you like, a lot of people like grub rub. To me, it's a little sweet for what we're doing here. But if you have something on hand that you want to use, by all means, go for it. Now, my seasoning mix here is pretty simple. It is equal parts salt, pepper, chili powder, cumin, garlic powder, onion powder, oregano, and smoked paprika. If you don't have smoked paprika, just go with regular paprika. That's fine, but the smoked flavor just kind of enhances the smokiness that I usually do with the seasoning, and so it gives it a little kick. But I have that on hand. It's already pre-mixed. Again, use whatever you have. Don't go to the store just to get a seasoning mix. Just use what you've got. And then I also have 2 cups of vegetable stock. I just use bouillon cubes because, again, it's what I had on hand. You can use chicken stock, beef stock, you know, whatever you've got. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to dice up my vegetables. That's a lie. That's not what I'm going to do first. What I'm going to do first is start my quinoa. Okay, so some quinoas you need to check. Some of them are pre-washed. Some of them need to be rinsed. They just kind of get a coating of dust on them whenever they are processed and packaged, I guess. This has been pre-washed, so I don't have to do that. But I'm going to use a cup of quinoa. And of course, I don't have a measuring cup. Hold on. Okay, so it's the same as rice. You want to use a 1-to-2 ratio, so 1 cup of quinoa, and then 2 cups of liquid. I actually use just under 2 cups of liquid because I like mine a little drier. I don't like it to be real mushy or anything. And I'm going to put it in a dry skillet. So let me adjust you here a little bit. Okay, so I've just got a dry skillet here, and I'm going to toast my quinoa before I add anything else to it. This has a really good nutty flavor if it's done right. And so whenever you toast it, not burn it. I'm real good at burning things. But toast it. You'll be able to smell it, and you'll be able to see it, the lighter grains kind of turning a like nutty brown color. And it just adds a lot of extra flavor in a very simple step. So I'm going to put my quinoa in a completely dry skillet. And I'm going to turn my heat on like medium low. Now the thing is that as soon as I turn this on, my loud vent system is going to kick on. So know that after this toasts to a golden brown, and I can start kind of smelling it and seeing that it's toasted up, I'm going to pour in my 2 cups of vegetable broth, and I'm going to bring it to a boil, and then I'm going to let this simmer for 15 or 20 minutes. Until my quinoa, you'll be able to see that it opens up, that it bursts, and it's going to have little white rims on the outside. And I'll show that to you when I'm done. All right, so right now I'm going to toast this up, and I will be back. Okay, now then, while my quinoa is toasting, I am going to chop my veggies real quick that are going to go in, and I'm going to saute those in a separate skillet. I'm going to put, well, actually, since I've got this zucchini, zucchini has a lot of liquid in it. And so I'm going to put just a tablespoon or so of butter in my skillet with my vegetables. But I'm just going to chop these all to about the same size. Just a little, like a small to medium dice. Now on my bell peppers, I cheat and I just cut them this way. And so I'm going to use my red bell pepper because I like the pop of color that it gives. All right. So again, just kind of a medium dice here. Okay, nothing too crazy. You're just cutting it into strips, and then I cheat when I cut my bell peppers. I just cut around the edges like this so that the core stays intact, and then I go around and just kind of finally cut these off and on the bottom. But that way, I think my cousin taught me this actually a while back. But that way my seed pod stays intact in the middle, and I don't have to clean up 8,000 little seeds that I inevitably scatter all over the kitchen. So I've got my bell pepper in there. I'm going to do next my chipotle peppers. And these can pack some heat, so I'm probably just going to chop up one of these, and then I'll taste it, and if we want to add another one, we can. So hopefully you guys are doing all right in your quarantine confinement as best you can. I know a lot of people are still having to work. I'm helping to pass out lunches just to kind of get out of the house a couple of days a week to lay eyes on some of my students and make sure they're doing okay and all of that. But I know a lot of people are healthcare workers or first responders, and super thankful for them right now. A lot of people that are frontline essential, if you will. So. All right, so that first chipotle pepper I cut was pretty small, so I just kind of, I cut another small one, part of a big one, whatever. All right, what else do I have? My onion here. Okay, so I'm gonna teach you a trick on cutting onions. Let me scooch it over just a little bit more. Okay, so cutting an onion. Here's how you properly cut an onion. Let me stir my quinoa real quick so I don't burn it. You do want to keep an eye on it while it's going because it will, depending on, I'm on these big gas ranges, but it will burn. So keep an eye and a nose on it. This is just about done, so it's just been a couple of minutes that that's been toasting. And I can hear them kind of popping. I'm gonna go ahead and add my vegetable broth to my quinoa and bring that to a boil. Okay, so I'm going to bring that to a boil and then lower it to a simmer. We'll be good to go. We'll let it go for a minute. Okay, so cutting your onions. First thing you want to do is make yourself a level surface, okay? So you're going to cut off the, not the root end, the top end. Okay. It's kind of an ugly onion. Oh, because I had my chipotle peppers. Oh, there goes my vent hood. Hold on. Okay, so that's automatic and I don't really have any control over it. So bear with me if it kicks on again. But you're going to make a flat surface here for your onion. Put it down on there and then you're going to cut through it, through the root end, okay? Now, I'm not going to use this whole onion because it's huge. So I'm going to put half of it to the side and then I'm going to peel, you know, the couple of outside layers of this one. All right, I'm just going to take that off, put my little trash pile there. And then I still have, you can see that the root is still attached down there. Okay, that's very important. You're not going to want to cut through that root. But your onions have these nice little natural ridges right here that serve as a really good guideline if you are doing a small dice, which is what we're going to go for here. So I'm going to just cut almost to the root, but not all the way. Okay, just right there along those ridges. You can go every other one if they're really tight. But again, I'm not cutting all the way to the root. You can see here it's still holding together, right? I've cut them, but it's still held together down there at the root. And I'm going to go all the way across. I am cutting all the way down to the board. So I'm going through all the layers, I'm just not going through the root. So again, still attached, just cut, okay? Still attached at the root though. You're gonna turn and you're gonna make some horizontal cuts now. This is a fairly small half, so I'm just going to do one horizontal cut here. Again, I'm not going all the way to the root. I still want it to be held together, but now I've got to split down the middle as well. So then I'm gonna hold my onion and I'm going to just dice across, and it's going to make all of my pieces the same size. Now the reason it's important to have the same size pieces is because if you don't, then they're going to cook differently. So your larger pieces are going to take a longer time to cook, and by that time your smaller pieces might be burned or bitter, or, you know, might not know where they are, who knows. But I'm going to throw these onions in. Throw some on the floor too. Okay, next I'm gonna knock out my zucchini. Now, if you have several zucchini, this quinoa filling that we're making is really good for zucchini boats. All right, and on a zucchini boat, all you're gonna do, cut your ends off of your zucchini, cut it in half. Let me go grab my tool. And then you can just scoop out the middle, like scoop your guts out here. Scoop your guts out. Scoop the zucchini's guts out. You can do this with a knife. I don't actually know the purpose of this tool, but it works really well for this. So, anywho, I've got my zucchini guts scooped out, and then I can just fill this with that filling. Throw it in the oven, put a little cheese on top, and it makes a really good meal as well. It also works really well if you have hamburger meat or any kind of ground beef. That onion has my eyes watering. Or any kind of ground meat. It goes really well in the quinoa mixture too, or in your zucchini boats. But since that's not what I'm doing today, I just wanted to show y'all though. I'm just gonna chop up these guts real quick. And then I'm going to use this. By the way, I did pre-wash all of my vegetables here, so be sure you do that. You can give them a little vinegar bath, just water and vinegar, or just run them under, you know, some cool water. Kind of wash them off. So if you use your knife to scoop things off your board, be sure that you flip it carefully, if you're a kid especially, but be sure that you flip it blade side up and just use the back side of your knife to pick up, otherwise you're going to dull your blade. And this blade is pretty dull. I've got to get these knives sharpened. It's a good time to do it right now. Okay, so I've got bell pepper, onion, zucchini. I'm going to dump in, I don't know, half of this can of fire roasted tomatoes. And then I'm going to do a tablespoon of butter or so in my veggie skillet. And then I'm going to turn that on medium to low heat to saute. So you can see here, I've got my quinoa going here. I'll go grab a lid in just a minute and cover that so it cooks a little faster. And then I've got my veggie skillet here. So I've got all of those veggies mixed in, that on top. And then here in a little bit, I'm probably going to add some of the adobo sauce out of the chipotle pepper can. It just gives it, again, that smoky flavor and gives it a little bit of a sauce feel. So I'm going to throw that on. Okay, so we're going to cook these down until they're nice and tender and until my quinoa opens up and the liquid is absorbed. So we'll be back and we'll check in after that. Okay, y'all. So, oh wait, am I recording? I am. Okay. Okay, I'm back with you here. I wanted to show you this quinoa that has cooked. So you can kind of see how it's opened up. It's really not focusing well. But it's going to grow in size quite a bit, each grain. You'll be able to tell that it's done. It's going to soak up all of your liquid there. Take a bite of it. You want it to still have some texture, or at least I prefer that it does. You want it to still have a little crunch. You don't want it to be mush or it's not going to be real enjoyable. And again, you can substitute this with any kind of grain or pasta you have on hand. Wild rice, white rice, I love couscous, so I've used that as a base before. But really just whatever you've got on hand will be just fine. Now my vegetables, with those, okay, you can see it's cooked down. All of my liquid has cooked out and it smells amazing. It kind of almost smells like when you get fajitas and they bring it to your table. It's just got that smoky Southwest smell to it from our seasoning. Now I did add a tablespoon of my seasoning mix to my vegetables, and I'll probably add a tablespoon into my quinoa as well, just to make sure that we're not lacking on flavor. I really like to season things well. Now then, I leave some texture to my vegetables. I do not like a vegetable mush, so these are still holding their shape, and they still have a little bit of a crunch or a bite to them. Now my onions are translucent. Didn't caramelize them, didn't cook them all the way down. They're not mush though. And then my zucchini, I threw that in last because I like it. I like the crunch of the zucchini, so I just cooked it for a couple of minutes. And then added that, had the tomatoes in there. Again, whatever you have in your fridge. I've added spinach to this before. I've added fresh tomatoes. It's really whatever you've got that you need to kind of get rid of. Now I have my cilantro here that's washed, and I'm just going to cut a little bit of that. Fresh herbs, if you're using a fresh herb of any kind in anything, you want to add your fresh herbs in last, okay? If you add them in too early, they will disappear, basically. Their flavor becomes kind of null and void. Now, if you're using dried herbs, go on ahead and toss them in at the beginning. They'll enhance the flavor. They kind of sit in there and mellow. But if you're using fresh herbs, you want to add them at the end. So I'm going to add, I kind of have some funky stalks in here, but I'm going to add my cilantro now. And it'll cook, this is still warm, so it'll kind of, not necessarily cook, but it'll just warm this up and kind of release the flavor and the aroma of it. I know there are some cilantro haters out there. I don't understand you. I know it's genetic. I know it's not your fault that you don't like cilantro, but it makes me really sad for you. I'm one of those like double up the cilantro people because it's so good. If you don't like cilantro, obviously don't put it in there. But again, depending on what vegetables you have, you can really do any kind of flavor profile. You could make this with Italian seasoning just as easily. So, I grew up in West Texas and South Texas, so my food tends to have a little bit of a Hispanic flair, if you will, just because that's what I'm used to and what I'm familiar with. Trying to branch out, but really, it is what it is. So I've just got a couple of tablespoons here, just roughly chopped, and I'm going to mix it in. Scoot this over to the side. Okay, so really and truly our, I'm going to put this together here in just a second, but our quinoa and our veggies are done. So if that's what you're eating, if you're going for a meatless Monday, or if you're vegetarian, it's ready to rock and roll. You can combine the two. I usually put I'll show you plating in a minute, but I put quinoa on the bottom, and then I just pile those vegetables on top, and I'll drizzle a little bit of this adobo sauce, not adobe, we're not working in computer here, but this adobo sauce, on top, and then throw a little bit of fresh cilantro just to make it look nice, and then you're good to eat. Now if you want to add a protein, I'm going to show you a really easy way to add some, really quick way. So I had some shrimp in the freezer, so I grabbed about 6 of those out, 6 or 7, I don't know, there's about a half dozen in there, and I've got just some all-purpose flour here. I'm going to add, again, just my seasonal mix because it's going to go with the flavors we've already got. So I'm going to sprinkle that in there. And I'm just going to mix my flour and my seasoning. That was about a tablespoon to a cup of flour. And I've got my shrimp here. They've been thawed out. They've been dried off. I strained them through a little bowl or whatever so they're not soaking wet. I'm just going to dump those in there. And I'm just going to toss them around. I'm just going to lightly pan fry these. I've got about a tablespoon of oil in a nonstick skillet over here. When you're cooking shrimp, it goes really quickly, so don't, and let me swap those real quick, but you don't want to overcook your shrimp, okay? 2 minutes, you're probably good. You want your shrimp to still be tender and juicy. You don't want them to be tough and chewy. If you are eating shrimp that are tough and chewy, I'm very sorry. Cook them for less time. Get this out of the way. Okay, so again, I've just got a small skillet here, right? Oh, you see my guy back there? See him in the window? My gutter guy? Big fan he has. Big fan. All right, anyway, got my skillet with just a little bit of oil in the bottom. I have tossed these shrimp in this all-purpose flour and seasoning mix. Let me light my stove real quick. Okay, I'm gonna heat this up for just a second, and then I'm gonna drop these in. And again, a minute, minute and a half on each side, flip it, and you're good to go. It doesn't take long at all. That's why I love cooking with shrimp, because it can be a last minute addition to anything. Again, your meal can use any protein. It's good with chicken, ground beef, any kind of, you know, a thinly sliced steak would be good. It's also really good if you do the Southwestern style. It's really good with a fresh sliced avocado on top. It kind of gives like a smooth, buttery feel to the and taste to the meal. It kind of offsets the crunch of the vegetables and the quinoa, and so it's a good contrast there. Whenever you're cooking, you want contrast, right? You don't want everything to have the same mouthfeel. You don't want everything to have the exact same taste. Now you want them to work together, but if everything tastes exactly the same, there's no difference. It gets kind of boring to eat. But you want your textures to complement each other. You want your flavors to complement each other. Okay, so my oil should be warm now. I'm just gonna drop those in. So those are gonna go for just a minute. I'm gonna grab a plate to show you how I plate this. And I'm gonna kick off my event hood system. Okay, let's wrap this up. I realize this is longer than most. Sorry for that. I know we're about to hit 30 minutes, but we should be done by then. Okay, so I just turned the heat off on my shrimp, literally a minute, minute and a half on each side. I know it doesn't seem like long. I'm gonna go ahead and take these out of the pan so they don't overcook. But they do have carryover heat, residual heat. Just like a steak, something like that, your temperature continues to go up as you, even after they come off the heat. So you definitely don't want to overcook these. Okay, so I've got those off, and let me just show you what I would do to plate these. So I'm just going to take a scoop or two of my quinoa here. Depends on how hungry you are. So one little scoop would be plenty for me. All right, I'm not going to make this. New glove here, by the way, but oh, forgot to put on the other one. But I'm not gonna make this super fancy. You can get a mold, like a round mold or something, if you really did want to do something super fun. But I'm just gonna kind of gather it up here in the middle. I'm going to scoop my vegetable mix on top. I don't get to plate very often, so I kind of have fun when I do. But a scoop of vegetables falling off there. Okay, then I'm gonna throw my shrimp on. And then I've got just a little bit of this adobo sauce that I'm gonna kind of drizzle down over some of my shrimp. Vegetables. Spoon would work great here, but I didn't want to go get one. Okay. And then I'm going to take just some cilantro. We're going to add a little hit of freshness there. Again, for you cilantro haters, you don't have to do it. But anyway, there we go. There's your quinoa, veggie, and shrimp dish. And it's really good. It's really amazing. I would love to see your take on this, because again, there's so many variations that can happen here. I've loved seeing all of the pictures of the buttermilk biscuits come in. I've already had some people send me some pictures of some buttercream frosting they've made. So I just love knowing that y'all are in the kitchen right now, because bless it, we're in the kitchen a lot right now. And I know that it's different and it's tough. So hopefully this will give you some easy recipes to kind of knock out and use up some of those things that are getting out of hand in the veggie drawer. But there it is. I will see y'all soon. Have a great day.